Well, welcome back. It is week 5, and for 5A and 6A teams, that means it's week 1. Everybody's here, everybody's playing, and we have a lot to talk about on this edition of Nebraska Sports Prepscast. And before we get into that, I'm your host, Jeff Perkins, with my fellow Eagle colleagues, Alex Miller and Abigail Ochoa. Glad to have you back this week,
Yes,
Abigail.
thank you. Yeah.
And Abigail and I, this weekend, we didn't actually cover any games last weekend because all week we were working hard on our special high school football preview tab that came out today. It's Wednesday. So if it's still Wednesday and you're listening to this, be sure to go pick up a copy of your Eagle. And if it's not
Totally.
Wednesday, then I guess call the Eagle office and see how you can pick up a copy of it, because it's pretty good, and we're pretty proud of it here at the Eagle. But Alex was on location in Centerville for kind of a statement game for the Tigers, I think. I was expecting it to be close, and it really wasn't. They really came out and got it done.
Yeah, from the first snap, it was defense that really won the game for Centerville. They caused 4 turnovers. Westwood fumbled the ball on the first play of the game, and immediately it was Centerville's night. They were rolling. The big win for sure. Palestine Westwood, they were a 3AD1, so Centerville playing up an entire classification, not even one division, but 2. And, defense, like I said, 4 turnovers. They came up with the goal line stand. It was pretty epic. Westwood had 4th and goal at the 4 and ran to the left, diving for the pylon, tackled him at the 1-yard line. It was pretty good. Paxton Hancock, great game. He had 166 yards, and that was big because Caden Dunn, he was limited for Centerville with his right hand. It was wrapped up. He was injured, but he still got into the action. Didn't go in on offense until the second quarter, but he played a lot of defense, made some big plays on that side of the ball. Freshman Andrew Newman, he had a big night early on, got an interception, scored a touchdown, but he left the game late in the first half with an injury. Didn't really get an update on that, so I'm not too sure, but he's been pretty solid at instant impact player for Centerville. And here we go. Now Centerville, they're closing non-district play this week with a big game. They're playing at Bremond. Both teams are really hitting their strides after week 1 losses. Each have won 3 in a row. So this is not only a big game for Centerville, but it's a big game for Bremond. This is really going to be one of the better area matchups of the week. So yeah, that's what I have to report from Centerville.
And kind of a lot of different things to unpack there. Mainly, Centerville's not afraid to play freshmen. They get their best kids on the team. I know last year Hancock was a bit of a revelation to us.
Yes.
Came in and played a lot as a freshman, and looks like he's continuing to do well for them this year. I think he's been on our Player of the Week poll a couple times already this year, including last week for that 166 yards, and then I think on defense had like 10 tackles and maybe a pass deflection or a rush to pass or hurried quarterback hurry or whatever. I can't remember, but I know he made an impact on both sides of the ball. And then one thing I wanted to ask you too, how does Brant Roberts look at quarterback? I feel like he can maybe add another dimension for them, of course, transferring over from Rudder.
Yeah, they only threw the ball, I think, like 5 times. Centerville, they're a run-oriented team, but yeah, and not only Brant Roberts, he's got an arm, he can make some plays, but they've got a great receiver in Dylan Denman. That dude just makes plays. The first touchdown of the game was a touchdown pass to Denman. It was about a 40-yarder, I believe, and they went for it on 4th down, and they rolled left on a play action. Denman caught a pass over a corner, broke a tackle, and raced into the end zone. It was a spectacular play. So yeah, not only is Brant Robert, he has a good arm. He's got a guy he can throw to that can make some plays. And I remember going out Centerville last year a couple times. Dylan Denman made some plays in the passing game, and he hadn't stopped. So yes, Centerville, run-oriented team, but they can throw the ball. They've got talent out wide too.
It's been a couple of years since they made a run to like say the core. I think the quarterfinals was 2017 is their deepest run here recently. Maybe they can kind of make another run here. They seem to have good players in just about every spot.
I think Bremond, playing them this week will be a good kind of measuring stick as well because, Bremond after that first loss against Normandy at home, where Normandy kind of was able to stop their defense and, had Hardy running all over the place. Centerville, obviously, last week, their defense came out big for them. Hancock, like we mentioned, was kind of the guy for them on the ground. So, Frank Bremond will be back, back at home, and I'm sure they're going to kind of want to maybe redeem themselves for that first loss that they had after winning 3 straight and go into district like that. But it'd be interesting for sure to see, Centerville coming off this high almost of winning last week and going into Bremond.
And Bremond took care of business last week, I think, against Dawson, right?
Mm-hmm.
24-13. I think
Yes.
we have a bunch of good 2A teams this year, I think. And that's not totally unusual, but like Normandy looks really good this year. Like you mentioned the Bremond win. They beat the brakes off a Love Lady last week, 50-14, I think.
Yeah.
That offense doesn't look like it's slowing down. Snook looks, they won their first game this week, but they've looked pretty good. Their defense looks good. Had some close losses. And Iola, after a season opening loss, beat Burton this week in their district opener. So lots going on in 2A. What stood out to you guys?
Well, like you said, Snook was a good one. I mean, they finally got that win that they've been looking for. We've talked about it in the past, they've been losing, but not necessarily bad games. I mean, it's not like they're playing bad. So for them to be able to get that win, I think stood out to me as well. I think that might have been the only game that really stuck out. Yeah.
Two games for me. Rockdale, they got rocked by Belleville. I think they lost 42-14. That's a tough loss for Rockdale.
Yeah.
We said last week that was going to be a tough matchup for them, and yeah, I mean, big loss the week after the really close loss to Lexington. That really good game. Not a lot going on offense for the Tigers last week. They get McGregor this week, so winnable game there. Can they get back on track, or are they in a lull? I would expect Rockdale to get back on track, but yeah, that was a tough loss for them last week. And then, hey, how about Franklin finally getting a win? Big nights from Seth Spiller, Bryson Washington, our player of the week. And here come the Lexington Eagles. Big test. I think, Abigail, you're going to be there in Franklin this week. So, yeah, in Lexington, they're well rested. They didn't get to play last week. Cameron canceled the game due to players having COVID. So, yeah, that's gonna be a big game up in Robertson County on Friday.
Yeah, I think getting back to Franklin, the Franklin side of it, Troy is not a joke. Troy won that insane district last year with Rockdale and Cameron. Troy I think everybody expected last year that to be a 2-horse race between Cameron and Rockdale, and it was a 2-horse race for second because Zach Herbacek and that Troy offense ran over both of those teams last year. So, now again, you I don't want to say contained Zach Herbacek because he had a good game too. I think he had over 200 yards against Franklin on not very many carries. But, you limited that offense to 27 points, and now here comes Jared Kerr. And, we've seen what he can do, so it'll be another really good test here. I think that's their last non-district game, right, for Franklin? Or are they in the same district as Lexington?
No, I believe it's a non-district. Yeah.
So, again, I think that this is kind of a theme that we've seen this season is all of these, like, really good 3A teams are, like, all scheduling each other, playing – really tough opponents before the season, and now we're kind of seeing what they're made of heading into district. So that brings us to 5A and 6A getting started this week, and I feel like we've already just gone through a whirlwind of topics and teams, discussed a lot, and there's no shortage of good topics and storylines here for Consol, College Station, Bryan, and Rudder. We'll start with Consol just because they're up first. They go 7 p.m. Thursday at Waco University, that nice Waco ISD stadium they have up there. Good press box. So I'm
Yes.
going to enjoy that. But I think this is you kind of mentioned Rockdale looking for a get-right game against McGregor. This is not so much a get-right game as much as it is a what do we got game. Because I don't think anybody outside of that locker room really knows what the Tigers have. I think everybody still has high expectations for them. I do. I think they're, probably not going to be quite as talented as last season. It'd be hard to be that, but we've seen what Lee Fedora built at Navasota, and he took over a really good program already from David Raffield, and so you just kind of expect holes to be filled with new athletes, but you don't really know until you see it.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, like you mentioned, they're pretty, they're trying to fill these holes. They're a little bit, getting these new faces in there. I know you talked to Fedora this week for the preview. Does he expect it to be kind of a steady race to get started, or does he want to kind of start a little bit faster, quicker? What was he kind of thinking about that?
Well, especially when it comes to offense, there's nothing slow about what Lee Fedora wants. The Tigers and the Cougars, for that matter, they're going to be pushing the tempo from the get-go. But I think what really stuck out to me is in both years where there's been a presumptive new quarterback, so under Lee Fedora, so like the first year when Caden Fedora ended up being the starter. I talked to Lee, and he was like, we have a competition. All the guys look good, and we're not going to make a decision. And then last year, when Paul was technically the new starter, but like he had already had starting experience and he was the clear front runner, it was still like, oh, he has to earn a starting spot. Like, we're not going to give it to him. And this year was a little bit different. I'm not saying that Fedora is handing Kyle Willis the starting job, but this year Kyle Willis comes in as the guy who's had a little bit of game experience, not as much as Paul had before he took over, but he's been in games, and so you think he have the leg up. And Fedora just told me, he's the starter right now, which really kind of surprised me. So I think they have a lot of confidence in Kyle Willis. I can tell you from the little I've seen of him, he has a big arm. He came in. I think the most extensive playing time he got last year was against Cleveland in the regular series, regular season finale. He came in and threw a 40-yard touchdown on his first snap. So we know he has the arm. It looks like he has the accuracy. I think he completed 7 of 10 passes last year. So it's just going to be about getting used to that and finding out who he's going to be throwing the ball to, because when I asked Fedora about that for the preview, he gave me a list of about 15 names for receiver and defensive back. So I think they're just trying to figure out where everybody fits. And I think this Waco University game, the Trojans aren't as bad as they were when they were in the same district as Consol and College Station. Like when they were on like a 40-something game losing streak. They've since broken that, and they're better than they were as a program, but I still don't think that they'll be able to compete with Consol for 4 quarters. So I think this is kind of a good jumping off point to start figuring that out.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, with so many unknowns for Consol, what a great game to have for your season opener. You go on a road environment, so that's going to be tough. You need guys to step up. It's a winnable game. It's a game they're probably going to win. So yeah, it's going to be a chance for them to find their identity in a live game setting. So, and we know Coach Fedora is a great coach. So Thursday is going to be a good measuring stick for Consol to see where they're at personnel wise.
Right, and I think defensively is where they have the most experience coming back on both lines. The offensive line has 3 returning starters in Barton Melder, Cole Watson, and Rhett Larson, I believe. So all of them, they're big kids. It's going to be a big offensive line with some experience, which is it's kind of it's flipped from last year because last year they had all those skill guys coming back and they had to figure out who was going to slot into where for most of the offensive line. And this year the offensive line's kind of got that experience that the rest of their offense lacks. But on defense, that front seven's pretty experienced because you return Jaden Thomas, junior, was sophomore last year. Junior defensive end came on strong at the end of last season. Eric Goodman kind of burst onto the scene at the start of the year, had a pick six, I believe, from his defensive tackle spot. Was like the first time I was like, who is this cat? I think second or third game of the season, and he really kind of continued to get better and better. He's back. They're moving Vince Sheffield from the defensive line. He's going to be taking over for Mikael Williams at middle linebacker, and he has that elite combination of size and speed to where he could really compete all over the defense, except for you probably wouldn't put him at corner, but I bet you if they wanted to, they could put him at safety. So, they've got really good pieces on defense to build around, and it's just going to be figuring out who those skill guys are going to be, even on defense in the secondary, because they're replacing the 4 starters from last year.
Yeah, that's got to make Consol feel good that they've kind of got some guys like Sheffield and some experience on that D-line to where, there are unknowns on offense, but they can kind of lean into those anchors on defense to help out.
And so that's going to be at Waco ISD Stadium, 7 p.m. Thursday. So keep an eye on that score, and I'll be there covering that. So you can follow for updates on that at jperkins_Eagle. I'll have that for you. And then I think this moves us to probably our local area game of the week in Hutto at College Station.
Yeah.
These two teams have a little bit of history. They played in the playoffs early in College Station's history. I think probably their first or second year eligible for playoffs. Both of these teams have dynamic offenses.
Yeah, College Station is losing some people, Austin Sosa, Kobe Cashin, Trey Wynn, people like that. But they are coming back with a good, strong, junior, sophomore class from last year. They still have Roderick Brown, a running back, Will Hinson, tight end. And, these veterans are going to be really important this year to kind of get everything going, especially the offense. I talked to Steve Huff earlier last week, and he was saying, against Temple and their scrimmage, in the beginning, the offense was trying to get stuff together. They were kind of lost a little bit, and it got better towards the end. They started to get, snap back a little bit and get back in there. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they open up. They'll be at home, which I'm sure will give them, they'll be comfortable there. But it'll be important for the offense to kind of come out, with Jet Huff now as a starting quarterback, taking over a little bit. I know Coach Huff said that, they might put in Kyle Wash and Lucas Sampson kind of throughout. But right now, Jet is their guy that they're going to start. And of course, he does have some experience from past seasons. So that'll be kind of interesting to see those changes being made.
Yeah, and Alex, I want to shoot it to you real quick. This is a bit of the opposite of the Consol game. An inexperienced team coming in and needing to kind of gel. With College Station, it's an experienced team that's wanting to take that next step, and they've got a playoff opponent right off the bat. Is it time to unleash Jet Huff?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, this is going to be a playoff atmosphere week 1. Hutto is a very talented team, and yeah, it's time. Like this junior class, it's one that we've heard about. It's one that we've talked about. It's one that we saw glimpses of last year, and now they're upperclassmen. And maybe they are just juniors, but they're the guys that College Station's really leaning into. Roderick Brown's a senior. He's carrying the full load now. Colby Cashin's gone. I'd be willing to bet money that the first play that College Station runs is 22 power.
Yeah, I would say power right. They like that power right.
If Stony Pryor's listening to this, I'm willing to bet money that that's the first play they're calling. That's their bread and butter. I mean, power O, run offense, spread it out, throw the ball, nickel and dime down the field, take a shot. I mean, that's College Station's game. And they need Roderick Brown to be solid. And yeah, I think it's Jet Huff's time. And he knows this offense better than anybody. His dad is the head coach. He works with the quarterbacks. Jet has been around that system for years, and now it's his turn. Um, he is the starter, and he's got his crew, his guys around him, and yeah, it's go time for College Station, and this is a great test right out the gates. Hutto, playoff caliber team, like we've said. There's some history between the two schools, so this is a great week one measuring stick in the non-district slate for College Station, and we're gonna find out what the Cougars are made of right out the bat.
And Abigail, I want to wrap up this discussion with you and the defense, but before we get there, it's just hard not to draw some parallels. I'm not predicting a state championship for the Cougars just yet, but it's really difficult to ignore the parallels because you have an athletic quarterback in Jet Huff with a pretty strong arm, and you have what looks like a bell cow running back with Roderick Brown. You know, you'll probably mix in some other guys, but you know, Data Anderson was their guy in 2017. He handled the rushing load, and it's looking like Roderick Brown can do that for College Station. And then you have a really big, tall receiver out wide in Houston Thomas, just like Jalen Campbell. So you have those pieces on offense, and you've got some, you know, college level players on that offensive line as well. So that offense is really looking good. What did you talk to Steve Huff about with as far as the defense goes, Abigail?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously they kind of like the offense, they did lose a couple of guys that, that were big guys for them. But I think kind of the same thing. They're coming back with these strong guys that they've built up since they were, freshmen, sophomores, juniors last year. And they're going to kind of go with that. He didn't really honestly give me too much about the defense. It was more of kind of seeing what the offense is going to do with the little changes that have been made there. And to see if they could get in a groove maybe faster than they did in the first game. But I think that also probably comes with a little bit of like rusting or wiping off the dust of, not having played in a while and things like that. So that's kind of what he gave me. But I think the focus was kind of more on how they're going to do offensively with the little changes that were made this season. But he did say that they, this summer, really helped them with their team chemistry. That's a really big thing right now. He said these people, these kids are gelling together. They've been playing together since they were little. And this is their time to kind of shine, after having, been, the underclassmen, and now they're the leaders now. So, he said that they want to play tough teams first. They want to play tough 6A teams. Because if they can't do it then, if they can't see those, they can't be in those situations now, then later down the season when they are in those tough situations, playoffs or whatever, it's not going to help them. So
yeah, no, we saw last year. It took the Cougars a while to get used to playing, at the level of defense that we're accustomed to seeing from them. They had some rough games defensively at the start of the season. I can't remember the Fort Bend team that they played to open the season last year, but it wasn't pretty for that defense. But by the end, we did start to see glimpses of that really strong defense that we've seen from them. So yeah, we'll see if they can build on that. And like we've talked about, Hutto is a pretty good opponent to start with and kind of see what that defense is about. Another team that has had historically good defenses, or at least under Ross Rogers, last year struggled in that department at times. Bryan, they start their tradition of playing Waller to start the season. I think this is their 5th year straight to play him in non-district, and probably their 4th straight to play him in the season opener. Of course, we know Ross Rogers' history with Waller, coached there in the 70s and 80s for a stretch. And we've kind of talked about this is a year for the Vikings to kind of figure out how they can get back on track after a couple down seasons in 6A.
Yeah, I know. I believe most of their offense is coming in kind of new this year, their offensive line. I know Norman G kind of had the same thing going on, but I mean, as we saw from them early on, it seemed like it was okay. So I think it'll be interesting to see in these first few games whether they're able to kind of gain confidence in that area where they may be lacking a little bit, or if they maybe fall a little bit and have to come back up. But they do, like you said, they have a lot of people coming back, quarterbacks, receivers, some good running backs as well. But I know just from reading our previews that, Rogers was excited to be kind of in this district where maybe it's more level. These teams are coming off of similar seasons that they are, 2 or 4 something records. So that'll be really cool. But their offensive line, I know, is a little new this year.
Yeah, they have a few pieces, important pieces, namely Nico Bullhoff coming back and Dwayne Paul Hill. But overall, I feel like the Vikings are very young, very inexperienced, and I think these first 4 games are going to tell us a lot about this team that we don't know a lot about. I feel like these are winnable games. I think they beat Waller 4 or 5 straight times here in the last few years. So if they don't play well in these first 4 games, I think it's going to be a pretty long season for the Vikings. But like you said, the district does benefit them a little bit. I think it's roughly the same overall as Cypress,
Right.
but I think that the familiarity that both Rogers and Brian, just the schools, have with the Temples and the Killeen schools, I think that will benefit them more than having to play against a bunch of teams that not only they don't know a lot about, but nobody does because they're brand new, because it seems like a new Cypress school pops up every 5 years. So yeah, I think overall this is a benefit to them. And again, like Consol, we're going to learn a lot more about the Vikings here in the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah, and I think it's important, they get out on the right foot, not only for their sake and the trajectory of the season, but, next week they have a tough road game at College Park, the Woodlands. So it doesn't get easy after week 1. And like you said, Waller's a winnable game. They're playing down to 5A, and it's a team they're familiar with. So a week 1 win could go a big way for Brian just starting out the gate.
I think Rich will be taking care of that one. Travis Brown, our Aggie, one of our Aggie riders, will be at College Station for Hutto at College Station, so he'll get a good one. You can follow him at it's at Travis_L_Brown, right?
Yes.
And then so he'll be hitting it up at College Station Hutto and writing a story right quick, and then heading over to give you coverage of the virtual Midnight Yell. So you can follow him for all of that on Friday night. That's at 7 p.m. Friday at Cougar Stadium. And then Waller will be coming to Bryan. That'll be 7 p.m. Friday at Merrill Green, which brings us to our last 5A, 6A game of the week for us, for our area. Will be Rudder at Bastrop, 7 p.m. Friday at Bastrop Memorial Stadium, where I will be. And I feel like more than any other non-district game over the last few years for Rudder, I feel like Bastrop the last 2 years are kind of, for Rudder, the ones that got away. Winnable games, especially last year. They lost by 1 point last year, I think, maybe 2. And a team on a similar level, same classification, both just kind of on the outside of that playoff picture, trying to bust through. And I think this is the year that Rudder will finally start off the season with a win over Bastrop, get off on the right foot. And, I think this season is set up more than anything for Rudder to finally make the playoffs. They've been so close the last, most of the last 4 or 5 years. I think they've had 3 fifth-place finishes in that time. And obviously week 1 is never a must-win, but I feel like if they can win this game, we'll be telling. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like you said, they have a lot of people coming back. The majority of the roster is I'm sure they're hungry to make the playoffs this season. I mean, it's been building up to this, like you said. and I think they're really ready to get this going. Keithon Lee's back. EJ Ezar, Coach Ezar's son, is back. He threw for 1,500 yards about last year. Lee ran for about 1,200. Then they got Trey McClinton on the defense leading that way. They've proven that they can come back, from large deficits in games, but I think it'll be, or from what I've heard from Ezar, the focus will be on defense, trying to get, trying to bridge those gaps a little bit sooner than, the second half a little bit here.
Yeah, and if you can get games started to where you're not having to dig out of that hole, then when your offense finds its footing, in the second quarter, in the third quarter, then instead of, trying to make up multiple possessions, you're, getting a lead and then keeping it late in the fourth. So again, I think they have the horses, especially on offense with EJ Ezar and Keithron Lee. And I think that you mentioned the successful season Ezar had last year. I'm pretty sure he was the newcomer of the year last year for 10-5A.
I believe so. I can't remember really.
I think he was, and I think again we talked about it. You got to put Keithron Lee on the short list for MVP candidates. He's so explosive when they get the ball in his hands. He's kind of like Darby last year or Nate Floyd last year for Consol. Even Devin Price, who's just a big kid with speed. Like, you want to find ways to get the ball in their hands because that's how you're going to win games. And for Rudder, I think that Ezar to Keithron Lee connection is going to be their bread and butter, and they just got to find, the pieces in the running game to kind of complement that. But again, it all starts with this game that seems to just give them trouble every year. And, with Rudder, you're looking for small things to change. And I think getting a win would be a small thing to change that could prove big result or could provide big results for them, as far as confidence goes, building that confidence. And it's like, okay, well, if we can do this now, maybe we can do this.
Yeah.
That pretty much wraps it up for our 5A, 6A games. You think we missed anything, or can you got anything? Then we'll move on to Abigail's game, which probably is 2A or 1B in our games of the week for the area because we've already touched on it in Lexington and Franklin. What are you expecting? Come game time, you're going to be there.
Yeah, I have a feeling my eyes are going to have to be glued to the field at all times with these two teams. I don't think I'm going to be able to even look away. But, Lexington, like we mentioned earlier, is coming off of, they didn't play last week against Cameron because of COVID and stuff like that. Franklin's coming off a big win over Troy, like we mentioned. So having these two teams together should be a lot of fun. I know Lexington, obviously, we've seen it go both ways with teams who have had a week off, in between, non-district and things like that. Some teams, lose, aren't able to catch up as quickly. Some teams come out and dominate. I think Lexington's going to be no different. I think they're going to be itching to get back out there and itching to, score. I'm sure Kerr's, dreaming of the end zone, but so I'm sure they're going to want to get back there. Franklin has some confidence going in, though. They'll be at home. Spiller and Washington had great games last week. I think they combined for about 450 yards. I know Alex was there, but it should be interesting. I don't think Franklin and Cameron – Franklin, they had a hard time getting the run going against Cameron, and they were able to stop them that way. It wasn't as close as I think maybe everybody thought the game would be a couple weeks ago, but this one for sure, I think Lexington is just going to come out. They're going to be, wanting to play, wanting to get back out there. And I don't think it'll matter that they're on the road, at Franklin, but it'll be a good one for sure.
I'm thinking this is going to be kind of like Lexington and Rockdale. We know those teams both have good defenses, but I'm not so sure that it's really going to matter this week, just with all of the power the power running on Franklin's side and just the electricity that Kerr provides. I think there are past two players of the week in Kerr and Bryson Washington. And, like we talked about with Franklin, Washington's going to get his fair share of the carries, but they also have another like 30 carries to split between, 3 or 4 other guys that can run the football really well as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've already talked a lot about this game, but, I would imagine a similar game to Lexington and Lexington and Rockdale, where it's not all offense, but it's mostly offense. And then, maybe somebody steps up on defense to seal the game.
Agreed.
Any other games stand out to you guys in the area?
I will be at Allen Academy. Allen Academy and St. Joe's are kicking off their season's TAPS. They're getting started. Private schools. So and that's a big game down at the 6-man level. I mean, you talk about a private school 6-man game. They're cross division or crosstown rivals. Allen Academy. They've been building toward this season. They jump up to the Division I level in 6A or 6-man, excuse me. And they've got a strong senior class. They bring back all but one starter, their quarterback. So they're looking to replace the quarterback position, but they've got a guy that had some experience last year. He was also their running back and played receiver. So the Rams, they've got talent. St. Joe's, on the other hand, they're going down a division to Division III. And, they're looking to make a run. So this is going to be a high-energy game. It's going to be personal. It's going to be a good one out at Baker Field in Bryan.
And I think for me, one game I'm looking at is Holland. I think it's at Hearn. Holland paying a visit to Hearn this week. Hearn, we talked about last week. Hearn is one of those teams that, you look at it on paper and they've got the horses and they play well on Fridays, and then they haven't been able to get over the hump against Holland, and they haven't been able to get over the hump against – oh, man. I forget the other team. They've got through 2 straight third-place finishes after that district title a few years back, and then that's caused them to run into some – really tough teams in the area around where they've lost the past couple years. And so when I talked to Coach Sargent last week for the season previews, they're expecting a lot. He didn't make any excuses or any bones about it. They're thinking state title, but to get there, the first step is a district title. And then, that's what they're focused on right now. And this is the game that they have to win to do that, because Holland's been the district champion the last 2 years, and I think they're the favorites coming in. So to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that's what we're going to see if the Eagles can do that. I think that's pretty much everything we got this week. I think we hit on a lot of stuff, and I think we still made it in about 40 minutes. I don't know how we did it, but. So I think that's going to do it for us here on the podcast this week. Quick before we go, we all got games this week, so let's plug our Twitters. Alex?
Yeah, you can follow me at Alex Mill, 2 L's, 20. I'll be out at Allen Academy covering the Rams against St. Joe's.
You can follow me at Abigail Ochoa 88. I'll be at Lexington at Franklin.
And I will be at Waco for Consol, Waco University. And then on Friday, I will be at Bastrop for Rudder at Bastrop. You can follow me at jperkins_Eagle. I'll do my best to keep you abreast of the games and the goings on. But man, we're in for an exciting week of football. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about next week, and I can't wait. But until then, we'll be signing off, and we'll see you then.